What's going on, everybody? This is your host, Elijah Jackson, and we are back at it again, man, with the Full Court Press podcast. This week, we're going to jump right into some football, and a big topic that's been going on as we break into the NFL season with the preseason starting to wind down is the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. And while this ranking comes with a lot of different criteria, a lot of opinion, there is some objectivity that I think has been kind of cast aside when a lot of people are giving these rankings or putting their context or their nuance onto the situation. So with that said, man, we're going to get right into it. And I'll just say this before we start. I am taking into context the resume. I am taking into context the individual talent, whether that's throwing, athleticism, just overall leadership at the quarterback position. But most importantly, I think is your ability, like I said, to lead the team from the quarterback position and to influence wins on your team. What would your team look like without you? How would your team play without you? Or how have they played in your absence in many of these situations, as we see with different injuries or suspensions or different things of that nature? And jumping right into it, we're going to go from number 10 to number 1. And starting out at number 10, a guy that a lot of people, I think, would have higher on their list because of the natural talent. I mean, he's just got that natural quarterback build, kind of I don't want to say stereotype, but the prototype type build. And that's a Justin Herbert. Came into the league out of Oregon and immediately exploded onto the scene, a lot bigger than what I think a lot of people saw from him as far as his expectations and potential coming out of Oregon. But like we said, a big guy, a lot of athleticism, definitely has all the arm talent in the world. But with that said, the reason I have him at 10 on my list is the production outside of the statistical numbers, whether that's the playoffs or just regular season wins. We haven't quite yet seen Justin Herbert get over that hump and make it to the next level of elevation as far as being a leading elite quarterback. And why I would say top 10 is elite in my estimate. I mean, just as far as getting his name up there, where I see with a lot of people have him top 5, top 6, around there. While he definitely has the talent and the capability to be that, the potential to be on that level, for me, he's just not quite there yet. I can't say that he's been in situations devoid of talent early on, having a Keenan Allen, now having a Lad McConkey. When Mike Williams wasn't hurt and given his production in times, showed great talent as a wide receiver now, even though he's retired now. But he's always been surrounded with a more than competent team, that I would say. And that's a better situation that I can say for a lot of these quarterbacks that we'll see come up on this list. And not to say that they play for necessarily bad teams, but just as far as the level of what I bring to the table raises the expectations of this franchise. And while I think Justin Herbert will get to that level, he will be a quarterback. Well, I'm not necessarily saying Super Bowl winner. I mean, that's hard enough, and that's not necessarily the end all be all. It's a team game. It's a 53-man roster with 11 men on one side and 11 men on the other side of the ball. But Justin Herbert has that talent and that potential to be a perennial playoff quarterback. Moving on, at number 9, a quarterback that takes a lot of flack up in Dallas, and that's Dak Prescott. Yes, he's coming off injury, but even starting there, last time we saw Dak Prescott come back from injury, he came back definitely with a bang. And he's a quarterback, like I said, that takes a lot of flack. He gets a lot of slight for the expectations of what we want or what a lot of people think the Cowboys can or should be with the talent and the roster that they have throughout the years. But one thing I can say about Dak Prescott is he's proven to be an elite quarterback, a top 10 quarterback over time, as far as playing in different systems, playing under different head coaches, having different number 1 receivers, going from a Dez Bryant to an Amari Cooper to now a CeeDee Lamb, and making the addition of a George Pickens like we talked about in recent weeks. But Dak Prescott has shown a consistency both on and off the field that is a necessity at the quarterback position. I mean, arguably the most important position in sports, but definitely I would say the most important position in the game of football is the quarterback, and not just what he does statistically, but also what he brings to your locker room in the leadership sense, and what he brings to the field as far as being able to produce and conduct an offense, almost being a coach on the field for the entire offense and leading the team. But much like Herbert, while Dak does have, I think he's 2-5 in the playoffs, and quite honestly, I think he should be at least 3-4 with having that win against the Green Bay Packers in his rookie year, because I definitely think they scouted, but I digress. Dak Prescott is a consistent winning quarterback. I mean, however you feel about the Cowboys and Jerry Jones or whatever the case is, when you take a look at Dallas and when you think Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott has come into this league from the time that he was a rookie until today, through injury, through everything, and has shown that he is a top 10 quarterback. And for that, he's number 9 on my list. And the rise, just like Justin Herbert, he needs to take that next step as far as being a playoff quarterback, consistently winning in the playoff, consistently leading his team to at least pass the first round, maybe the divisional or even the conference championship. Moving on, at number 8, we've got one of the young guys. And honestly, if it wasn't for, I tried to place some pullback, some objectivity on the situation, just given that it was his rookie year and we've only seen one season. We'll now see a season of him coming back in with coaches and teams and franchises having the opportunity to have a full season of film on them, to have the ability to know what they're dealing with, and there won't be quite an element of surprise. But that's Jaden Daniels, and like I said, while he's was a rookie last year, and this may seem like a high ranking, at the same time, hands down, I would have to say, as far as the productivity of both numbers and the success of the team, I have to give Jaden Daniels a spot in this top 10. And that's why he's at number 8, because it's the best rookie quarterback season I think we've ever seen. And honestly, hands down, bar none. But Jaden Daniels came into a situation, much like the next guy we'll talk about, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but came into a situation where I don't think anyone really would have, maybe the most diehard of diehard Washington Commanders fans would have said, oh yeah, we have a chance to make the playoffs, or we can do this or do that. And definitely there were people going into the draft who saw Jaden Daniels as really challenging Caleb Williams, that Caleb Williams was not the consensus number 1 overall pick, that Jaden Daniels in his time at LSU and both at Arizona State really showed his potential and his talent and his accuracy and athleticism, that he would be a great quarterback coming into this league. But I don't think anybody expected him to come into a Washington franchise and make the immediate impact and shift of expectation the way that he did. And for that, I have to say, even given one season, even just being a rookie, and he does have to do it again to sustain his ranking. You have to update your resume. You have to understand that you don't start off where you left off last year. It's 0-0, and he'll have a chance to get back out on the field. But as of right now, Jaden Daniels stands at number 8 on my list, being an elite quarterback in this league. At number 7, fitting, lucky number 7, my favorite number, one of my favorite quarterbacks in this league is the young CJ Stroud, who ironically, as I kind of mentioned earlier, before Jaden Daniels came into the league, I would say that CJ Stroud had one of the best rookie seasons we've ever had. And I think both of those guys have kind of skewed what we expect out of young quarterbacks nowadays. And it's in recent years, but I think people see instances or scenarios like that and immediately expect to throw guys into the fire and change franchises around. Because much like Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud came into a situation, new coach, while and Quinn have experience as a head coach coming into Washington, with D'Amico Ryan coming into Houston, while he's definitely experienced as a player, definitely experienced as an assistant and as a DC, but coming in being a rookie head coach with a rookie quarterback in a kind of the pride franchise. I mean, we haven't really seen the Texans in consistent competition as far as playoff aspirations or playoff expectations since the days of prime Deshaun Watson and J.J. Watt and prime DeAndre Hopkins and even back to Bill O'Brien and different things of that nature. But C.J. Stroud came in his rookie year and placed an immediate turnaround on that franchise. And even with the struggles of last year, I mean, bad O-line play, going through a lot of injuries in his receiver core, you still see him produce. You still see him lead. And while some people might say he went through a sophomore slump and he took maybe a step back as far as in his performance, I mean, that's kind of bound to happen with, like I said, you get a year of, okay, now I see his tendencies. I got a full season of tape. I've got a playoff game to watch on. He's not coming in with the element of surprise, with certain weapons that we don't quite know what they are yet. And you got everybody's best punch last year coming in, knowing exactly what you are or the type of player that you are and how you want to play. And he may have taken some step back as far as statistically, but given all the issues around him with the roster and injuries, like we mentioned, to still lead a Texans team that they had last year into the playoffs, I still have to give C.J. Stroud a big nod for that. And the thing that places him over Jaden Daniels for me is, like I said, just the consistency of coming back, facing that sophomore slump possibility, facing that second year of being on tape and still having the consistency to be a top quarterback in this league and to lead your team back into a winning position with a lot of hope and potential for their future. So moving on, at number 6, I have Matthew Stafford. And while Matthew Stafford is definitely getting on up there in age, Tom Brady has kind of skewed the opinion of what an older quarterback is, playing into his 40s and still being a winning quarterback. That's the GOAT of the NFL, in my opinion, or at least the GOAT of quarterbacks. And Matthew Stafford is still one of those guys. He's been through a lot at age 37, and he's going through back injuries right now. Hopefully he'll be ready for the season, or at least at some point early on in the season, maybe no later than week 4, week 6, because the Rams, with the addition of Devontae Adams, they do have true playoff and maybe even championship aspirations for this team. But they're going to need Matthew Stafford. They can't get it done behind the arm of Jimmy G. That's a far different comparison when you have an elite quarterback, an elite arm, a generational talent like Matt Stafford. And we saw what he was talent-wise all those years with the Detroit Lions, and having Megatron and being the tough, gutted-out player and having just the unique arm strength that not a lot of guys have in this league and always recognized by coaches and other teams and other players. But to come into the situation with the Rams under McVay and to take them to that next level where they were already, yes, a championship team, but hadn't quite got over the hump, he got them there and led them to their Super Bowl championships. And with that win, I mean, he kind of got the monkey off his back of, is he just a statistical giant or is he truly an all-time great quarterback? And I think Matt Stafford is in that upper echelon of quarterbacks when you really think throughout history as far as arm talent, the ability to lead, the leader both on and off the field, to be a face of your franchise. Matthew Stafford is one of those guys, even at 37, even with all the wear and tear on his body. I mean, one of the few teams that really gave the Philadelphia Eagles, who were a dominant team last year, really gave them competition and really gave them a scare and a push in the playoffs. And I think with Matthew Stafford coming back into the season, if he can get things rolling, if he can come in and health giving, and that's for everybody. This is a dangerous game in the NFL, but if Matthew Stafford is healthy and is on his game, Matthew Stafford is still a top 10 elite quarterback in this league. And these next couple guys that I have ahead of him are, in my opinion, the elite of the elite. Starting at number 5 is Jalen Hurts. And a lot of people have Jalen Hurts, and I won't say that it's quite disrespect, because a lot of people do say that Jalen Hurts is a top 10 quarterback. But in my opinion, he's earned the right. He is undoubtedly a top 5 quarterback, and not just for winning the Super Bowl last year, while that is a big part of it. It's the nuance of the situation. Coming into a Philadelphia Eagles team from the start of his career that was facing turmoil with the QB situation, having drafted Carson Wentz at a high draft pick, I believe number 1 in the first round, having moved on from a Nick Foles and having moved on from going from Doug Peterson and to finding Nick Sirianni as your new coach and then leading them into playoff contention and leading them to a Super Bowl, to lose that Super Bowl and then to bounce back and then to play well and be the MVP of the Super Bowl this past year on the best team in the NFL. You have to give a man that credit for that. And while it is a more run-based offense, while it is a stacked team as far as around the board, they do have great depth at nearly every position, but the quarterback is the most important player of the team. And we've seen many great quarterbacks, not to disparage anybody or disrespect anybody's game or resume or what they've done in this league. I mean, to be a starting quarterback, to be a playoff appearing quarterback or Super Bowl appearing quarterback is an amazing accomplishment, an amazing feat within itself. But just to name a few names, I mean, like a Trent Dilfer, it's different levels. A Jimmy G or a Brock Purdy. We've seen guys that have these great teams around them, but individually or outside of that situation, they aren't the same quarterback or they aren't that tier of quarterback. And I think what a lot of people tend to forget with more athletic quarterbacks, especially black quarterbacks, is the nuance of being a quarterback, not just having an amazing arm or not just being the fastest or quickest guy on the field, but being a true leader of your locker room. Being a guy that can galvanize a team that's down, galvanize a team that was going through a bad stretch of football, galvanize a team that lost to a Kansas City in the Super Bowl, and to be able to bounce back and play them the way that he did in the Super Bowl. It affects not only the offense and the defense and the coaches, but the fans and the entire organization, the entire franchise as a whole, when you have a stoic, consistent leader who performs both on the field but off the field, is a stand-up man, shows a desire to be better, shows a desire to learn the game from the greats, shows a desire to give back, shows a desire to put in the work and the hours that it takes to be a top 5 quarterback. And then on top of that, I mean, you have to admit, in both Super Bowl appearances, in my opinion now, given the mistake and the turnover in the first Super Bowl against the Chiefs, that was a big turn in the game. But in my opinion, just on an individual basis and statistically, Jalen Hurts has outplayed Patrick Mahomes in both Super Bowls. So moving on from there, I mean, like I said, you have to continue it. You have to continue to build on what you've done. You can't just rest on your laurels. But Jalen Hurts isn't that type of guy. I mean, the guy has already put away his Super Bowl ring and isn't even thinking about the victory, to where a lot of people concern themselves with a Super Bowl slump or, kind of being a fat cat and coming in unprepared the next season. I don't think Jalen Hurts is that type of guy. He's shown it time and time again throughout his career, from his days at Alabama and Oklahoma, coming into the league with the Philadelphia Eagles, not guaranteed that he would be a starter. And many people not believing maybe that he would even be a starting quarterback in the league at all. To make the rise that he has to be commended. And for me, that makes Jalen Hurts a top 5 quarterback. And the ability, the traits, the mindset of Jalen Hurts is the reason why that I believe the Philadelphia Eagles have a great chance to, if not repeat as Super Bowl champions, to at least repeat as champions of the NFC and to make another appearance in the Super Bowl this year. Moving on, the 4 horsemen of the league, as I like to say, pretty much consensus top 4. Now, you may have it in a different order, or you may see a lot of different rankings or different rhymes and reasons why these quarterbacks are looked at in different ways. But undoubtedly, there are 4 names that you have to have in your top 4, top 5 QBs in this league. And starting off at number 4, I'm going to have to go with Joe Burrow. Now, before any Joe Burrow or Cincinnati fans or LSU fans or whatever the case may be jump on me and cry foul, as a quarterback, it's not all on you. This, like we said, this is a team game. But at the same time, what comes with the expectation, what comes with the burden of being the quarterback is a large part of the team's success, of the team's winning, and the capability to elevate out of a certain situation is what the quarterback brings to the table. And while Joe Burrow, alongside Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and the rest of that Cincinnati offense, had amazing, outstanding numbers last year, even with not necessarily a losing record, but even with a down season as far as winning wise, Joe Burrow was still in conversations for MVP just for how he played on an individual level. But having missed the having missed the playoffs in the past 2-3 years, having struggled as far as since their last Super Bowl appearance against the Rams in that loss, as far as on the team level of success, that's what holds Joe Burrow back from being ahead of these next three guys to me. But the guy has all the talent in the world. He may not be the athlete of some, but he's no slouch when it comes to being an athlete. He's not a statue. He's definitely a quarterback that can extend the plays. He's shown toughness, taking so many sacks behind the Cincinnati O-line since the day he's come into the league. And that's another thing. While it may not be seen as quite fair to him, the best of ability is availability. And Joe Burrow has come into this league with injuries here, injuries there. And that's one reason I am expecting big things out of him this year, for him to be able to come into this season healthy, not nursing any injuries, not dealing with any contract disputes or anything going on with his receiving core, his weapons. I expect a lot out of Joe Burrow this year and to break their playoff drought. But with that said, given what's gone and what's transpired in these past few years, he hasn't won a playoff game. He hasn't made it to a Super Bowl. He hasn't won an MVP. There's no way that I can put him ahead of these next three guys on the list. And that's no disrespect to Joe Burrow, because in all honesty, of all the quarterbacks that I've seen in my time since Tom Brady, who is my favorite quarterback, the GOAT, like I said, he's the closest to him. Almost like a Kobe to Jordan. He has a different level of swagger, a different personality than we saw in a Tom Brady, especially early on in his career, coming in as a higher pick, as a higher title prospect. But just the intangibles, the ability on the field, and I would say he has a stronger arm than Tom Brady, but just the leadership qualities, the accuracy, the ability to galvanize guys on the field. And that's one thing, not to say it's a knock against him, because I definitely believe Joe Burrow would be a top quarterback in this league, even without a Jamar Chase or without a T. Higgins. But to be fair to the other quarterbacks that we're comparing him to, I haven't seen the great Joe Burrow without great talent around him, like a Jamar Chase or T. Higgins or a Justin Jefferson back to his college days and so on and so forth. And I've seen these other guys with lesser talent, and for that, I have to place him at number 4. Coming up next at number 3 is this past year's MVP. And that may seem a little outrageous. Yes, the guy was just the MVP, but I'm not basing this, this isn't the NFL Top 100 to me. I'm not just basing this strictly off of the season that you had last year or what you've done lately. Is a culmination of everything. And while what you've done recently to update your resume is very important to me and is very important in the rankings that I have here, Josh Allen is still 3rd on my list, just because, similar to Joe Burrow, while he's had playoff success, while he's a consistent winning quarterback in this league, and he's a very unique quarterback. I've always seen him as a kind of a half Cam Newton, half Brett Favre. He's got the rocket arm. I mean, he can throw it a mile. He'll run through a wall for you. A guy that's always had a great attitude and a great passion for the game. He plays the game with a very childlike passion. He's got the big smile, but the big body to stand up to the pressure and to the hits, kind of like a Big Ben had back in his Pittsburgh days. And like I said, he's got the rocket arm to make every throw on the field. And you have to commend the guy for his progression, coming in out of Wyoming to the Bills and going through his first few years and then getting that tutelage under Brian Daboll and growing into the quarterback that we see now, an MVP of this league. undoubtedly Josh Allen is a great quarterback and a great dual threat quarterback, which is kind of rare for a guy who has such an amazing arm the way that he does, to be able to throw it 80 yards and to be able to be the leading rusher for a team. Honestly, while maybe not statistically, James Cook may lead in rush yards, the biggest threat in majority of the time are design QB runs or just break down plays where Josh Allen decides to scramble out of the pocket, and he's so dangerous. He can gash an offense. It's like having a 12th man on the field, because you have that quarterback who can sit in the pocket, who can extend plays and throw the ball down the field or make the check down, or like we said, just make every throw on the field. His arm has that capability, but he also can engage himself in the offense and impose his will on the defense and be the most physical player, the most physical runner on the field at the same time. And for that, Josh Allen is a top 3 quarterback in this league, the elite of the elite. At number 2 is the guy that I believe should have won the MVP last year. Had a great season, not just statistically, but great as far as team success, but didn't quite reach the ultimate pinnacle, didn't quite get to where they want to be. And they've been knocking on that door for years now with a great team, a great roster around them, but they're consistently building. And it's a team that I think will take that next step in this coming year with the additions that they made. But the number 2 quarterback that I have in the NFL is Mr. Lamar Jackson. And like I said, talking about the Josh Allen, Lamar may be the greatest dual threat quarterback we've ever seen. And that's no knock to a Michael Vick, one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time, one of the reasons I love the number 7. That's no knock to a Randall Cunningham, who, if you look at his film and you look at his statistics throughout history, it's undoubtable the things that he did as a dual threat quarterback. But Lamar is a different animal, a different beast when it comes to his quickness, his change of direction, his ability not only as a runner to gash you for yards on design plays and breaking down plays and getting outside the pocket to pick up those extra yards, but his ability to impact the game, almost in a Steph Curry sense. It may not be the biggest play or the craziest play all the time, but the way that Lamar Jackson can extend the play like no other, it can stab you and pull your heart out for a team. I mean, take away all your momentum and just take the breath out of the stadium to where it leaves you feeling almost in despair. Curry may not have an amazing game. He may be all field goal percentage wise. Same for Lamar. Maybe sometimes his completion percentage isn't quite where you would compare it to some other quarterbacks who are more focused on strictly the accuracy, while Lamar definitely has that accuracy, and we'll get to that. He can make plays that no one else can. And he's such a generational talent. He has to be in this top 3. And while we've seen the Ravens build on the receiving core year after year, going out making veteran additions like DeAndre Hopkins this year, making the veteran addition before like Odell Beckham, and making a first-round selection with a guy like Zay Flowers, and making a first-round selection with a guy like Rashad Bateman, who we yet to really see stay fully healthy to have the chance to unlock his full potential. A guy that I think can really be a 1A, 1B type guy if he really can hit the ground running going into a season and get that full potential of playing alongside Lamar. And now having a Zay Flowers on the other side, who's another great receiver, who's only going to continue to grow, in my opinion, in his ability on the field. And having a guy, a leader like a Mark Andrews, but also having a guy that I love, a young guy that I love at the tight end position like Isaiah Likely, who's shown the ability to make big plays. And with the stout run game, with the Derrick Henry, and with the stout defense, adding a Jair Alexander and having a Roquan Smith, and just everything that they have on this team top to bottom, I think Lamar will finally exceed the expectations of what a lot of people had for him coming into this league, despite him being a Heisman winning quarterback and showing his unique special talents all throughout his tenure at Louisville. Many people thought he should play wide receiver or try running back and all these different things. And he's came in and really shown the world. And I love the way that he carries himself. He's true to himself in his personality. He's true to himself in his work ethic. He's true to himself in everything that he does as a quarterback, striving to get better and being honest about his flaws and his shortcomings as far as being a winning quarterback to the great level of the all-time greats of Tom Brady, a Peyton Manning, a John Elway, so on and so forth, as far as breaking that glass and getting through to reach the highest heights of a Super Bowl. But he's been a consistent winning quarterback in this league, a two-time MVP, and like I said, a guy who I think should have been in that rare echelon of guys to be a three-time. I think he had a better season last year than he did in his last MVP season, but that's neither here nor there. I think Lamar faces kind of a voter fatigue, and not to compare him to a James Harden, but it's almost like we need to see you win that playoff game and dominate a playoff game and take that next step and next level before maybe they're ready to grant you another MVP, despite what you may have earned on the field. I think people and voters are kind of getting that level of skepticism, much like it surrounded a lot of great quarterbacks like a Peyton Manning, who had questions and skepticism around his career until he finally broke through, and different guys throughout the league. But Lamar Jackson is one of one, a guy that we may never see again for the unique way that he can throw the ball. His throwing motion, honestly, has always kind of reminded me of a Dan Marino, and it makes it seem blasphemous to some folks, but just a quick flick of the motion that he has good strength in his arm. He has good accuracy. I mean, you see him make a lot of great throws. It's not just the athleticism and the running ability. I mean, you look at his statistics as far as passing yards, passing touchdowns, and completion percentage. I mean, he's up there as one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen throwing the ball, even from a statistical standpoint. And because of that, I have to give Lamar Jackson that number 2 spot. Like I said, 2 through 4, 1 through 4 is a mixed bag. You kind of can, based on your preference or based on your opinion of what you've seen and how you see the game, you can rank these quarterbacks in a different way. But for me, Lamar Jackson is undoubtedly number 2, and only second to the guy who's shown since the day that he stepped into this league and came off the bench from backing up Alex Smith and made his entrance into the NFL. He's the only guy that I would put above those 3 guys that I named in his top 4, and that's Mr. Patrick Mahomes. I think it goes without saying. In most cases, the consensus number 1 quarterback in the league, while that's seeming to kind of change as you look around the league, some people not having him in certain rankings and some people having him behind certain quarterbacks, or saying this guy or that guy is taking a step to pass Patrick Mahomes. I haven't seen that. And while this may not be the same Chiefs offense, the same Patrick Mahomes that we've seen from the initial years of when he exploded onto the scene, having a prime Travis Kelce, having a prime Tyreek Hill, it was a different offense, a more explosive, big play offense. But at the same time, while some people use that as a knock, I've always seen that as a benefit, as a plus to the game of Patrick Mahomes, showing that he's not just all flash. And no disrespect to a guy like a Kurt Warner, because Kurt Warner definitely was a cerebral and a methodical quarterback who had sound textbook, who had sound fundamentals. But to go from a transition of being big play offense to showing, hey, I can do everything in between the 80-yard play action pass to making the proper check down and to making the winning plays that may not always be the highlight plays, much like a Tom Brady, who I reference again as the GOAT. And the only competition really in history that I see for Patrick Mahomes right now, the only quarterback in NFL history that I would rank above him, is Tom Brady. So that's what he's facing, fighting the past years of performances from Patrick Mahomes and the past years of what we've seen from Tom Brady, chasing those ghosts of GOATs. But Patrick Mahomes has shown an impeccable resume that can't be disputed by anyone, in my opinion. I mean, the guy has won Super Bowls in a multitude of ways. Like we said, going from winning Super Bowls with the Tyreek Hill and the Travis Kelce at their peak of their powers and being an unstoppable offense, to going through struggles and having a depleted receiving core or receiver core lacking certain talent, or not always having the best of talent on defense, while Steve Spagnuolo always puts together a great contending defense. By no means is it the 2000s Ravens or the 85 Bears or 86 Bears or something like that, or the Bucks of the early 2000s and that Super Bowl team. But having a sound roster top to bottom, Patrick Mahomes has always taken the team to a championship level, whether they make the Super Bowl or not. The Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes are always to be feared on a game-to-game basis, week by week, year to year. We know that Patrick Mahomes will be there. And while it's kind of a different trajectory, it's almost like it's a flip-flop, seeing Tom Brady go from not being as big of a part of an offense, not being relied on to make all the big plays, but to be the quarterback that doesn't make the mistakes and makes the winning plays in the right moments, to going to having a Randy Moss in 07 and having a Gronkowski and things of that nature going forward, and being a more explosive quarterback later on in his career, even going down to Tampa Bay, having weapons like a Mike Evans and a Gronkowski and a Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown. Patrick Mahomes is kind of making the inverse of that progression, coming in already having the backyard football ability, the sidearm angles and everything, the no looks and behind the back passes and everything that we see, to growing and developing the cerebral mind. And not to say that he didn't already have it, but much like a comparison to a LeBron James or a Michael Jordan, who had all the athleticism and all the natural ability of what they can do individually in the world, but as they came in and grew over time, learning the nuance and the different intangibles of the game, to be able to do big things by doing the small things, making the right plays, knowing when to throw the check down, knowing when to throw the ball away and not to take a sack, and just different things of that nature. Patrick Mahomes is undoubtedly the best quarterback in the NFL. And I would have to say he's only second to Tom Brady in NFL history. And that's my NFL top 10 quarterbacks in this league. Just to give it a quick rundown, we have Patrick Mahomes at 1, Lamar Jackson at 2, Josh Allen at 3, Joe Burrow at 4, Jalen Hurts at 5, Matthew Stafford at 6, CJ Stroud at 7, Jaden Daniels at 8, Dak Prescott at 9, and Justin Herbert rounding out the top 10 at number 10. And moving on, transitioning into baseball, a big topic that's been going on surrounding, just sports in general, but specifically in the MLB, being a sport who's never had to deal with this, being the Moneyball sport. A lot of people have been wondering, or the MLB commissioner has been kind of floating the idea of the MLB adopting a salary cap. And we won't get too deep into this today. This is definitely a topic that we'll come back and revisit. But I just have to say, from my personal opinion, it's not something that I want to see in the game. Just as a fan of basketball and a person who dislikes the model of how the NFL treats a lot of their players and makes them risk their injuries and health and livelihood to make money and doesn't have guaranteed contracts for their players, I've always appreciated and admired the game of baseball because, one, it's such a wide array of opportunity. There's so many rounds of just the MLB draft. There's so many rankings of making it through minor league baseball. There's so many players on the team to make it into a starting position or make it into a pitching rotation that once these guys make it, there's only so many guys that are making the top of top money. And while, yes, it's top dollar, outrageous money, and sometimes you have guys like a Bobby Bonilla who's getting paid millions years down the line for a contract that he may have retired on or goes out to injury or whatever the case may be. The MLB has it right, in my opinion, because at the end of the day, like we said before, the sports leagues are about the dedication of the athlete, about the dedication of the sport, most definitely, but it's an entertainment business as well. Each one of these teams, each one of these leagues is making millions, if not billions of dollars off the talent of these players, off the draw that they have, bringing in fans, bringing in revenue, drawing TV contracts and sponsorships and ads and different things of that nature. And without them, there are no dollars to be spent. So why turn something that's been since the days of baseball's existence, turn something that always worked? And I mean, you have, well, it may not always be the common theme for smaller market teams to win. I mean, in baseball, it's not just the money you spend, like the Yankees of maybe the 90s or the 2000s, like that's just going to win you a championship. And even then, you see teams throughout history, smaller market teams to bigger market teams that have the pros and cons of both ends. While the New York Mets are the competing franchise of the New York Yankees, who may be looked at as the bigger team, well, it definitely is the bigger team as far as just their history and notoriety. It just goes to show, just because you're a big market team and just because you have the money to spend or whatever the case may be, doesn't automatically put you ahead of a team like a Houston or a Baltimore or San Diego or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of things that go into the nuance of these franchises more than just spending top dollar to get the top players. And I mean, it's still a matter of not just always the money, but I mean, like a guy like a Shohei Ohtani, one of the best players we've ever seen, was in a great situation. And while the Angels may not be a big franchise, I mean, they're still in a big market, and he still would rather go to the Dodgers, not just for the money, but for the history of the franchise, for the front office of the franchise and how they do business and how they conducted themselves and what they're known for as far as their foundation in baseball. And I think adopting a salary cap just mucks up the game of baseball too much. There's so much more detailed and there's so many more things that could be addressed in the game of baseball to improve viewership and to improve, not diversity, but to improve an equal playing field, to show parity across the league if you want to see smaller market teams win. And that's something that I've seen brought up in different situations that I think would be more beneficial to the MLB in the game of baseball versus having a salary cap and capping out how much money you can spend on a player or how much money you can spend on a roster and shaking up the entire league and depriving certain situations of what we see going on right now. I think it would be much better and much more productive to try out placing a cap floor or a salary floor, forcing a lot of teams that, jumping back to football, a team that we know in the NFL has always been notorious for not wanting to spend money, almost seemingly holding on tight to their money instead of paying their stars and trying to build a team like the Cincinnati Bengals or into the NBA you had for years under a guy like a Donald Sterling, who didn't put all his efforts and resources into building a team and was just more concerned about making money than spending money to win. No disrespect to the Oakland A's, that's kind of how I view them in baseball. While you may be a smaller market team, you're still in a big market city. And I don't think a lot of these MLB teams put their full force of these millionaire and billionaire owners that they have into truly going after the best players and spending top dollars on stars, because like we said, this is still entertainment. It's still a television show in a sense. It's still a business, and it's more about making money to a lot of owners across these leagues, but even in the MLB especially, than it is about having a winning and championship contending team. So that's just my opinion. Like I said, we won't spend too much time on that. We will come back to that topic as the MLB season progresses. But I just don't think, looking at it from a standpoint of, and even like looking at it in the NBA, the changes made in the last CBA with the NBA and how contracts are done with now the second apron. And I understand in the NBA trying to kind of take back some power of not having so many trade requests and trade demands, and taking back some of the player empowerment to try to put franchises and ownerships and GMs back in a certain power that they had before, and making it harder to carry a lot of top dollar players on your roster, like we see with Boston, having to break down a championship contending team who didn't quite get their opportunity to repeat, facing injuries and going through things with Kristaps Porzingis, and then Jason Tatum going down with the injury that he sustained. And now when Jason Tatum comes back into that situation, it's a completely new team. Having a guy like a Drew Holiday gone, having a guy like Kristaps Porzingis moved out of town, and just different pieces moved around to where, as currently constructed, you're probably not a championship team. You're probably not a top 4, top 5 team in the West, certainly not a top 4, top 5 team in the league, how you were considered just a year ago. And that's the dangers of influencing and implementing a hard cap on a sport. And I just don't think it's beneficial for a sport like baseball, to where we've seen years of parity and different teams have an opportunity to win, and different teams have the opportunity to sign big-time players, and just different things of that nature. And with so much opportunity with the draft and with minor league signings and calling guys up and different things of that nature, it's just I would see a hard salary cap as more of a hindrance to the game of baseball, limiting the excitement that a lot of fans see from free agency moves and trade moves and the big deal signings and things. I think you limit the entertainment value and the traditional value and the overall draw of baseball by implementing a salary cap. And while it may help the pockets of the owners, I don't think it helps the players, helps the franchises, or helps the game, or helps the league as a whole. And in my opinion, if you had to ask me if I had some type of vote, I would vote against implementing a salary cap in the MLB. Moving on, discussing basketball. This is a topic that I want to be very gentle with, because, as I said, I respect the game of basketball so much, and that's both collegiate, into the professional ranks, down to high school, what the amateur ranks, everything. I just respect the dedication. I respect the beauty of the game. I respect the purity of the game. So with this next topic, I want that to be out at the forefront, to know that there's no disrespect intended, or that it's no minimalization of talent or any disparaging or disparity against what's brought by the WNBA. But just looking at the game as a fan who watches WNBA games and NBA games, who is a fan of or a promoter of the WNBA players having better amenities as far as travel and facilities, and having a better situation to where they make more money and they get the attention that they deserve on their game. I just want to discuss with you guys and hear what you guys have to think, maybe opinions on my take or opinions on things that you think could help grow the WNBA game. And with that said, let's just jump right into it. A thing that I've always wanted to see happen with the WNBA, and I want to say first, I don't mean a dramatic change in any of these. For example, lowering the rim. Like, if you look at professional volleyball, like in the Olympics, the women's net is slightly lower than the men's net. And while in the WNBA, you have a slightly shorter three-point line, you have a slightly smaller ball. I think there's something that could be done proportionally along those lines to where it's not a dramatic change. I'm not talking about like the little league rims or these little 7-foot rim leagues where you see just anybody can dunk and all that. But I think something, like I said, proportional to the size difference of the ball, proportional to the difference in feet or meters of the three-point line, I think you could do with the WNBA rim, allowing for more, not even just always the dunks, I definitely think would give a draw to the game, allowing women to use their athleticism and to show a little bit more flash as far as being able to dunk, something that draws. Because, I mean, you have players like a Caitlin Clark or a Sabrina, or you have players now like a Ricky and Paige Beckers, who's having a great year, who shoot the long three ball and bring the excitement from that standpoint. You see the game evolving and the skill that the WNBA players have, who always had the fundamentals, but showing a little bit more of what the kids like to say now, having the bag and getting into their things with the handle. I just think highlighting that athleticism with making it a more common act, a more common play in the WNBA to see the talent of the NBA be able to dunk the ball and to be able to maybe get a little more fancy in using their hang time as far as on layup packages and different things. I mean, you have guys like a Kyrie and a Steph Curry who don't dunk, but they're able to use a certain amount of finesse. And I think a slightly lower rim, like I said, given in a proportional sense, nothing that's a dramatic throw off to the eye, nothing that's a gimmick or makes a mockery or a circus of the game, but something, like I said, that makes it to where the average vertical, the average NBA player from the guard position to the center is able to dunk the ball. I just think that will bring more of an excitement, more of a draw, and in turn bring more revenue into the game, bring more fans into the game, and making more money for the league, in turn making more money that can go back into the players, getting the things that they deserve as far as private flights versus flying commercial, and having maybe their own facilities and their own stadiums, and having certain grievances addressed, and just making better salaries on an average basis from the 12th man all the way up to the superstars, and growing the league and continue to progress. Another thing that I think would be, like I said, on a proportional basis, you don't want to do anything that makes it like cutting it in half and makes it like a blatant sore thumb to the eye, but a shorter court. Not quite like an arena football, but a shorter court in a sense, like I said, on a proportional basis, that I would keep the court the same width to allow for the same open space of the shooting and the creativity of the game, but a shorter court maybe in the length, maybe not a full 94 feet, just to make the up and down a little quicker of the game, to make the back and forth and the pace a little quicker of the game, to draw in, much like the NBA tries to do by limiting certain things and limiting certain fouls and doing things that where they want to see the court get up and down and less whistles and more pushing of the pace. I think slightly changing the length of the WNBA court might give that. And like I said, these are all just suggestions or thoughts that I've had. Like I said, overall, like I said, not to taint the purity of the game or to disrespect anyone in their craft and their dedication and the hard work that they put in to being just as talented as NBA players, or just as hard working as college players or WNBA players and the NBA players, their male counterparts of the game, but just to adapt the game to make it, like I said, the entertainment aspect more appealing to the eye of the fan, more of a draw to the fan, to fill out stadiums, to increase revenue so that the WNBA players can get the money, the contracts and things that they deserve, being in a league that is a top flight professional league. I mean, regardless of the leagues that you have around the world and the things you see on the FIBA stage and different things, the best women players in the world in the game of basketball play in the WNBA. And I just think it's high time that we find what will grow this game, not only from just the financial aspect, but to truly give it the respect and the attention and the credit that it deserves with all these skilled players that play in the WNBA. I mean, even, like I said, with the slight shortening of the rim or the slight shortening of the court, I think it expounds on the talent of the game, being able to highlight the fundamentals that women players and that the WNBA players highlight in their post game, being able to highlight the different things that they do, like an Angel Reese, where her ability to rebound, I think you see that highlighted and appreciated more. And a player like an Asia Wilson and her post game and ability just as a 3-level scorer, and a player like a Paige Beckers or Caitlin Clark, like we said, their ability to get up and down and bring pace and flash to the game, or a player that I'm excited to see come into the league, coming back off her injury when she'll be drafted, like a Juju Watkins, and all the talent that she brings to the game, or Zia Cook or a Skylar Diggins, and just different players who bring such an excitement level to the game already. I think it's an opportunity for them to grow the game and to really have the younger generation even more excited about the young stars in the game that's constantly growing. Another thing that I think would be a big benefit is affecting or changing maybe the schedule of the games. Not to make it like almost kind of like a high school basketball game. I don't know how many of you guys were participants of high school basketball teams or were fans of your high school basketball team and went to games in your time, or go now as parents, or whatever the case is. But oftentimes you'll have the girls' game and then the boys' game. And I think it can draw and attract attention for the women's league having their NBA counterparts. Even if it's not necessarily in the same stadium, maybe that's too much to do. Some NBA teams or WNBA teams may feel changing the court and different things of that nature, even though I feel like that's possible given the scheduling and the timing of how you work things out, especially with the WNBA season being a shorter season, a shorter game. I think it's something that could be worked out, but just feeding each franchise, helping one another as far as being a corresponding team, like the LA Sparks and the LA Lakers, having a Sparks game being on the same day, a certain amount of hours before the NBA players come in to prepare for their game and get shoot around going and things of that nature. I think it would draw fans who, hey, I want to go see LeBron and Luka tonight. Hey, well, I have an opportunity to check out the Sparks game before that game starts. I think it just draws a different attention to the game, and like I said, can help each league. I know a lot of NBA players try to help push the WNBA game and try to help push the popularity of the game and to give the respect that the WNBA players deserve and give that to them on different levels of notoriety. But I think that's something that would really help as far as teams that already share a city, teams that basically already share a fan base as far as proximity wise, or teams that fans that root for the home team. I think that's something that would be beneficial to both leagues, but definitely bringing in more fans and more revenue for the WNBA fans. And if it's not something that players or franchises or whatever the case may be would want to do, maybe changing the season to taking advantage of, for me, what's kind of a slower period of sports as a fan, and having a season, like I said, it's about 44 games for the WNBA season, maybe fitting that into the months of between like June and August, to where there isn't much NFL football or no NFL football until the preseason going on. You're getting out of the NBA playoffs, and you don't have the basketball and football, the two major sports going on. Maybe you take advantage of that time and promote the game more so there. But I just think there's different things that can be done to help influence the game. Much like the players wore the shirts and kind of made their stand in this past All-Star game, the players deserve what they deserve. They deserve a higher revenue. They deserve higher salaries. They deserve the same amenities that their male counterparts get in the NBA. And I just think there's certain steps that can help push that process along. And like I said, this is just my opinion. I'm no expert. I'm no franchise owner or GM or anything of that nature. But as a father who has a daughter as a girl dad who I want to see go on to play in the WNBA, not to say I'm gonna force her or push her to do something that she doesn't want to do, but she likes to play basketball now. She watches me play and play basketball games and different things of that nature. It's always drawn her attention. And if that's something that she wants to do one day, I would want to see the game pushed to its best. I would want to see the game get all the notoriety that the NBA gets. And that's just a few things that I feel could push the WNBA to maybe the next level and getting that notoriety that they really deserve and bringing a new level of excitement to an already growing game with many great players and a lot of great talent across the league. That is our third episode of the Full Court Press podcast. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. We will be back, and I just want to let you guys know, without you, there is no me. So I want you to know each and every time that you tune in, I appreciate you guys to the utmost for tuning in for subscribing, for leaving comments, and just want you to know I hope you guys are enjoying this journey as much as I'm enjoying bringing it to you. I am your host, Elijah Rashad Jackson. I'll see you next week.